Hi again, and welcome to the Chromeworks studio in beautiful Ottawa, Canada. I'm Andrew Tomec, your technology teacher, and I'm here again with another Scratch lesson for you guys. So today we're working on part 4 of our fantastic epic series on making an RPG game. This is our biggest project yet, and we're still not done it. Jeffrey's still doing some coding on it. We're very excited with the way it's developing, though. It's really nice and modular, which is what I really like about it. So rather than being an independent game, this is more of a template that you guys can use to make games of your own. Every little bit of it is being constructed with the idea that we can add onto it and modify it to make really cool RPG games yourselves. So we've built it in a very simple structure, even though some of the code is very elegant. The structure is such that you can modify it and make use of it for your own projects very easily. So in part 1, I'm just going to remind you, let's go have a look at the screen right now. So in part 1, we got this hero going. We gave him a really nice skin that's a samurai themed kind of look, and we're quite happy with the way that he's moving around. Though we've created a system where you can add almost any character in here that has multiple costumes, and it will cycle him through there depending on what his actions are. Our character can fight and do all the other stuff that we need him to do. He has an idle animation, and he also has an animation if he gets hurt or if he gets killed, which hopefully we won't have to look at too soon. That was part 1. In part 2, we created bad guys and gave them a little bit of artificial intelligence so that they stop and take a swipe at us when we get too close. I'll kill these guys off. And in part 3, we created this map system where as soon as you're done your battle, these arrows appear in the directions that you're allowed to move. So we've created kind of a grid here where we can add extra rooms with their own backgrounds to it. And at the end of every battle, arrows will appear on the screen telling you which directions you're allowed to go, and that's based on which rooms actually exist. So there's a room up above us, and then the room that we just came from as well. And there's no rooms to the left or right of us, and that's why. And you simply hit the E button, the action button, to move to the next room where a new series of bad guys will appear. We'll probably get some new bad guys in there this week. Right now we just have skeletons, so you can see that our movement is constrained so that we can't move beyond an area that you've defined when you've made the map. And again, that's totally customizable, so you can use almost any map that you can download off of here. The arrows will appear in exactly the right place depending on what your movable area is. So it's all very nice and modular. All right, and so the arrow system for moving between different rooms is what we did last week in part 3. And today in part 4, we're going to set up a lock and key system where these arrows are going to be replaced with padlocks in some cases when you've locked up a room. So I won't be able to go to the room to the right here if I designate it as a locked room until I go to a room where I can kill the monsters and get the key that I want. There's a color coding system set up for the keys, so there'll be multiple keys that are all different colors on the board, and so in order to get the key for this room, you'll have to wander around the map and find the one that's the same color as the padlock that shows up here on the in the game. Okay, so it looks like you can't even actually see those arrows, eh? So there's the pink arrow that you can see at the right-hand side of the screen. So if we wanted to lock up the room to the right of that, we would have to create a locked room to the right, and then a padlock would automatically show up in these arrows. Okay, so I think we're ready to start coding here. Just wanted to give you guys the lay of the land before we got started. So you can see here we've loaded up something that I'm calling a catch-up file, and what that is all the coding we did in parts 1 to 3 so that we're ready to go from here. You can keep working on the file you worked with from last week, but you will need to download a key sprite of some kind, and you'll need to modify the arrow sprite as well. We're going to be adding a padlock here to the arrows, so you'll need to create a padlock graphic and create a new costume here for the arrows that's called lock, and I'll be doing that in the next little bit. and you'll need to download a key sprite as well. So this is what our key sprite looks like. It's colored red, and if you make a key, you should color it red yourself, just because that is the color that when we use modification tools to change the color of this key, we use red as the base color that we're starting with. So we're going to modify everything based on shifting it from red. So you should make your key red basically when you're getting started. Anyway, so that's where we're going today. The only code we're going to be doing is inside the arrow and inside the key, and we're going to be creating this locking system that I'm talking about. Okay, so let's get started. We're in the arrow, and the first thing we're going to have to do, so there's quite a bit of coding here, and we're not going to be able to test anything for quite a bit because most of this all kind of leads to one goal. So just bear with me, and we'll do a bunch of coding here, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So we're going to start with this big long block here that's called map changed. This is the script that runs every time that we change to a new background as we move around this virtual grid that we've created of different maps. And so what the script here does is basically check and see whether there's a room to the right or to the left, and it will place an arrow in that spot. If the room to the right exists, for example, it'll create an arrow here. It'll place it halfway between the two the movable top and the movable bottom of the screen, basically, so that it's centered in the area you're allowed to walk. You can see in this case, I can't go any higher or lower than that, and so the arrow is right in the middle of that space, and the same here, it's in the middle of the space where I can move left and right as well. So that's all being set up inside this script here. Now we're going to add a script that some more blocks to this particular chunk of code here that's going to check and see if we have a padlock set up on in any of these rooms or not, and it'll change the graphic accordingly based on that. Now, this script, you can see it only runs once. It's not inside a loop because every time we go in a room, we just check, we set up our arrows, and then we move on. But we've got something different happening now where we're stepping on a key at some point and grabbing it and putting it in our inventory, which means these things could change. If we have a key and a lock in the same room, then it's not gonna update itself if we until we get out of the room and get back into it, which is no good. So one of the first things we're going to do here is we're going to throw this into a loop. It's not going to harm any of the existing code that we're doing here, but it's going to help our padlock code to run automatically without leaving the room. So let's go to our control blocks here. We're going to grab a forever loop, and we're going to take everything below get map goal. So all of these if statements here that check and see where our arrows are pointing and whether they're appearing or not, we're going to pop them into this forever loop here, and we're good to go here like this. Now inside the forever, above these if statements, we need to set a few things up that have to do with graphics. So we're changing the color effect of the graphic to make the key match the color of the lock. And so right at the beginning here, we have to reset those colors just in case we change them for something else so that our arrows still show up as the same color. So let's go set color effect to 0, which will just reset our color scheme again. So we'll go set color effect to 0. Now we need to switch costume back to whatever costume that guy is wearing, and that's all determined by a variable called arrow direction. And so depending on what the number of that variable called arrow direction is, that will know which costume to put on, costume 1, 2, 3, 4, or a new 6th costume that we're going to create here in a second that has a padlock on it. Okay, so we're going to switch costume to arrow direction. Let's go switch costume. Right down below here, and we'll pop that arrow direction right into the hole here. Good, so now it's wearing the proper costume for whichever arrow we're dealing with. It'll run through this over and over again, once for each of the costumes, or for each of the arrows on the map, determining whether it's invisible or whether it's wearing a down costume, a right costume, an up or a left, or a padlock costume now, of course, too. All right, we're going to hide this guy right now because he actually doesn't need, these arrows don't need to appear until they get a show command. and they will get that show command right here, where basically if the background shows up on the list of backgrounds that we created here, it will appear basically. Okay, so what we're going to be doing for starters here underneath the show block is we're going to be setting a variable. Let's go ahead and grab a set variable block, and we've created a local variable called map key value. What that's basically going to be telling you is which key is going to open the particular door that's attached to the padlock here. So this is only going to work if your door is padlocked, which means this little pink icon down here is going to change to a padlock at that point. I've already just loaded up that graphic for you with a little red padlock like this. And so if the door is locked, we're going to check and see which key it is that reopens it. It's a fairly complex process, but it works quite nicely. So what we're going to do is have a look and see. We're going to look at that arrow, look at the goal, which is the map goal, which is which map that arrow leads to. And then we're going to compare that to our list of existing rooms, and we're going to see what item it is on that list. Let me show you the list right now here. So we've got a list here called all backgrounds. So as I explained to you guys last week, this is kind of an XY coordinate system. 0, 0 is where you start, the room that you start in. 1, 0 is an X coordinate of 1 and a Y of 0. So that's the room to the right of you here. So basically, if we were looking at this second room here, which is the one immediately to the right of us, we would want to see if this room, 1X0, has a lock in it. So we would find out that it was number 2 on this list, and then we would compare that to a list here called maps locked. We haven't created that list right now, but there's going to be one entry here for each of these rooms. And what it's going to do is look at number 2 on this room and say, sorry, it's going to look at number 2 on this list here because it knows this is the room we're talking about, and it'll see if there's a number there, and the number there will be the number of the kind of key that it will take to unlock this door. So we're just creating a system where we can create where every room can be coded with what key is there, and then we'll have another list called keys owned here that will show that will compile a list of all the keys that are currently in our inventory, basically. So we're looking at a whole bunch of lists here, and we're going to use that information to figure out whether we own a key and whether that particular arrow should be changed to a padlock or not. So we need to set map key value, that variable which tells us which key will unlock this door. And we're going to build a fairly complex bit of code here. I'm going to put it to the side at first and then drop it into this hole at the very end here just so I can show you it as we're building it. So let's start off by making a duplicate of this entire green block here in just above here in the if all backgrounds part. So I'm going to move my cursor to the middle of it, right click and go duplicate. Now I've got a copy of this. So if we click on this new block, you can see that it points to the next room where we'll go to if we click on the particular arrow we're looking at. It's not really important which room we're going to. I just want you to see the format here. When I click on it, it says 0x2. That means that this arrow will lead to the third map up. So we start at 0x0, and we go up to 0x1, and then finally to 0x2 if we head straight up on the map. So that will render that. Now we want to find out where that is on this particular list here. So 0x2 is actually here under number 7 on our list here. So we want to get back that number 7 out of this so that we're basically trying to get it to refer to this list and figure out what number this is on the list here. So let's go ahead and grab a block here that says item number of things in all backgrounds. So we're looking at this list called all backgrounds. We're here in the list, which is the kind of light or sort of kind of reddish brown blocks here that we don't use very often for our list commands, right? So these will create these multi-level variables, which we would call data arrays in ordinary coding talk. So an array is just a list of information instead of one particular piece of information like would be stored in a normal variable. Okay, so we want to know which number that is on the list. We just drop this entire block here into the bubble. And now the number we get back is 7, which is what we're looking at. So we now know this is list item number 7. Now we're going to compare that Okay, so now we need one more block here. So we're going to be looking at that number, number 7, on the other list that's called maps locked. So we're going to be checking the list of rooms that are locked up and checking item number 7 to see what number is there. So let's go grab another block here from our brown blocks, sort of light reddish brown blocks. It's called item number of all backgrounds. We'll change that to maps locked. And we're going to drop all of this in here. So it's going to be finding number 7 or whatever the number is. It's going to change, of course, as we go. And it'll see what is the details of that under number 7. What's the number? So when we go to number 7 of maps locked, what is the value that's there? So right now there's nothing there under number 7, so it's going to return a 0, a blank, right? But as we get further into the game and we populate this list, it's going to tell us what the information is in there, and that will tell us which key number it is that's in this room, or so what key number will unlock the room. So it might be a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or something. Okay, let's drop all of that information into this variable called setMapKeyValue. Well, this was a little bit confusing. This is where we get into some pretty obscure stuff, guys, right? So it's hard for me to show you what's happening because all the pieces have to be assembled for you to really see how it all works. But if you click on this and you get a blank right now, you're probably in good space. And if you were to click on it if we pull everything loose except for this one part here and click on it and you get a number back, it might not be 7. It depends on which arrow it is you're looking at right now. But if you get a 1-digit number back, then you've probably coded this correctly. Okay, so we've got all of that in there. Now we're going to put another if statement down below there, and we're going to check and see if we own that list, that key. So the map key value, let's say we get a 2 out of that. We're going to check our inventory under keys owned here and see if we have key number 2, if it's in existence in our inventory or not. So let's go ahead and grab an if statement. We'll go to control if. It's going to be a little tricky to drag that in there. Let's go, sorry, I'm in the wrong screen here. If. We're going to drag that underneath the set statement here. Yeah, there we go. So we want an if statement inside another if statement down below these blocks here. That's where we are right now. And we're going to say if. So we want to, if we want to say if we. Okay, so what's happening here? So this is going to make the padlock show if we don't own the key, right? Because the padlock won't have to appear if we own the key. So we basically need to say if I don't own the key that matches up with the padlock that's supposed to appear on that arrow, then the padlock will appear there, right? So let's go ahead and grab a not. We're going to go to our operators. We'll grab a not. So if not, and we need a keys owned contains. So let's go ahead to back to our variables. We're going to grab another list variable and we're going to do something contains, list name contains. I'm going to grab this one here that says all backgrounds contains thing. And I'm going to drop that into the hole there. And I'm going to change this to keys owned. We're going to look at that list called keys owned and see if it contains map key value, which is that number of the map key that we own. So let's go map key value, drop it in there. All right. So if we don't own the key for that particular padlock that's on that arrow, now we need to check for one more thing. We'll put another if statement in here to keep it simple. We could have gone if this and that, but instead we're just going to put an if statement inside our if statement here. And we're going to say if map key value is greater than 0. So we're checking here to see if our map actually exists, or no, sorry, if our padlock even exists. So if it's a value of 0, that means that it's not a locked door anyway. We can afford to ignore it then. So let's go greater than 0. We'll go map key value right here. There we go. If our map key value is greater than 0, then we need to do a few things. I'm going to do this off on the side now just so I can show you what we're up to, and then we'll drop it into the right spot. So let's go. I've stopped my code. By the way, this test isn't going to work if our code's running, so just make sure that you've stopped your file. We're going to go change color effect here. And we're going to change the color effect by a variable here. Let's get out a multiplication sign. And we're going to change it by 22 times map key value. So let's go grab a bubble that says map key value. So we're just making an increment of 22 here. Basically, map 1 will be a color shift. Let me get my, my costume over here to the padlock that I've created here. So as I said, this is the default color for the padlock. We're going to go and set that variable. I'm just going to pull out a block here that says set map key value. We just want this for testing purposes, and we're not going to use it until later on. So if my map key value is 0, it means it's not going to change around at all. So let's go ahead and change my variable map key value, and then I'm going to click on this change color effect, and you can see that my color is still red. So if I'm on key number 1, so if I have key number 1, let's set that variable to 1, and now let's look at where this is set to. So it becomes a green color. So that's the color of key number 1. So Jeffrey's played with these basically so that every time we add 1 to it, it's a very distinct new color. So let's change that variable to 2. This is what key 2 will look like. It's a blue key. There we go. And number 3 is, sorry, set it to 3. Oh, it should be set color effect. Sorry, I've grabbed the wrong block here. Let's go ahead and change that to set color effect. I'm sorry about that, guys. I was wondering why I was changing every time I clicked it. It should be on the same function. So let's try that again. We'll go back to 1. So key number 1 looks like, we've got a different set of colors here. So key number 1 is kind of orange color or golden colored. Key number 2 is green colored. Key number 3 is darker green colored. Key number 4 is kind of teal colored. Key number 5 is a blue color. So 22 seem to be a good distance apart after our testing, basically to make each one of them look really distinct from the other. So the padlock and the key are both going to be the same color. And that's why they both have to be colored red, so that we're starting from the same place, so that both of them work the same way. All right, let's go trash this set map key value because we don't need it right now. And we're going to take this set color block here and drop it inside the if statement just like that. So that will set our key to the right color. Now let's just go switch our costume. Let's go switch costume to lock. All right, so that is going to switch us to the proper costume so that we actually have a locked door here of the proper color. Okay, so I believe we're done with this section of the code right now. Now we can go There's one other thing we have to change over in our arrow keys, and I'll get to that in just a second. Okay, we're back. We're adding quite a bit of detail here today. Unfortunately, there's not a lot to see so far, right? Because, as I said earlier, the way that this file is structured, it'll all kind of come together at the end. So I need you guys to be patient with me as we continue to build this. Let's go back to our code. We're done with this particular block, and we're going to move down to a new area right now where we just have to make a minor tweak. All right. So we're looking for the block of code here that says when I press the E key. That's the activating section of code here that will actually send you to the next room. Now, this block will be visible if there's a room adjoining, but it's going to be visible with a padlock if the room is locked. And so what we need to tell it here is don't change us to the next room if the door is padlocked. To do that, we need to take all of the code under this contains part of this block here and add an and sign here. So we need to say we're going to move to the next room if the room exists, or if the room is on our list of all backgrounds, and if it's not wearing the lock costume, basically. So let's go ahead and grab an and sign under our operators, and we're going to grab everything here, grab it in the middle here so you don't rip it apart accidentally. And we're going to put, actually we want to grab this entire all background block here, sorry. I'll put that on the left. So we're going to say if that list contains this particular room, and not. So let's grab a not here. Not costume name equals lock. So let's go ahead and grab an equal sign. And we'll go to our variables. We'll say costume name. Oh, and not a variable. Sorry, it's under our looks commands here. We'll go costume name is equal to lock. So if our costume is not named lock, then we won't. Then we will be able to go through. But if it is named lock, it'll just ignore everything in this if statement, and we won't be able to go to the next room. Makes sense? All right. So we're done with that. Now we just need to be managing our list here. So we're going to create a new custom function here. I'll just create some space up here, where we are going to be taking care of this list here that's called maps locked. So we're going to start by regenerating it at the beginning of every level. Now this is one of these functions that isn't necessarily going to run during the playing of the game. Your users aren't going to be interested in this. We're just going to be using this in between games to generate the map and to generate all these lists for us that the game is going to use later. Let's go ahead and define a new block here. We'll go to My Blocks. We'll go Make a Block, and we'll create something here called Reset All Locks. There's no parameters in there, so we can just go ahead and click the OK button. So the first thing we want to do is empty out the existing list because we're resetting the list here. Let's go to our variables here, and we'll just go delete all of, which is right here, delete all of backgrounds. We don't want to delete the backgrounds list, so we want to delete the list called maps locked. So this is a list of which rooms have locks on them, right? Right now, let's go make that visible. Right now it's blank, of course. So as soon as we delete the existing contents of the block, the next thing that we're going to do is go through the list over and over again for the number of times that we have backgrounds. Basically, we want this list to have the same number of entries as we have backgrounds on the map. So it's going to look at the list of backgrounds that we already have. So let's go put a repeat in here. and we'll go back down to our brown list variables, or light brownish red list variables, and we'll go length of all backgrounds. So we're going to be looking at that list called all backgrounds that has our list of rooms in here, and we're going to create a list here. Let's go add 0 to that list called maps locked. So it's going to go through a loop here. Basically, how many times? Well, we've got, I've got 16 maps on my list here, which is a bit weird. I think I haven't regenerated my map list properly, but it'll basically go through 16 times, because that's the number of times here, and it'll add a 0 to the list for each one. Let's go ahead and click it, and you can see that it's created a list here of 16 items. Once we clean our map list up, we'll have to regenerate this again. So it created a 0 here, basically saying that each of these rooms contains no keys. So, right now we've got our map set to a reset level. Now we can go ahead and add keys, or add keys to our room. So we're going to do that with another custom block. Let's go back to our make blocks. We're going to go make a block, and we'll call it add lock. Add lock. Now this one does have parameters in it, so let's go ahead and add some items here. The first thing we're going to add is a label. We haven't been using these labels much, but when we create these inputs in here, like this one here, where you can enter your own parameters, so it's difficult sometimes to figure out what actual information you're supposed to add in that list. So we're going to add a little text item here that says add lock, and then we're going to add our text here, which is index. So the first item we want to fill in here is our index, and then we'll go add an input. Add lock. Oh, I think we wanted to put a little pipe here just so that we can know. So I'm going to add a pipe, which is where is it on the keyboard? Right above my enter key. It's with you hit it with a shift key, and that's just kind of a separator here between these two parts, because we've got the label here, and then we've got we want to be able to tell this part of it apart from this part here. So inside here, we're going to type the word index, and then we're going to add another label, and that label is going to say lock color. This will make a bit more sense in a minute, guys. Let's just stick with this here. And in there, we're going to put an input that's also called color. There we go. Now, when I click OK, you can see that we've got our define block here, and our final block that we've created, our custom block, looks like this. So we've got add lock, and we've got an index, and we can add an index number here, and then a lock color here, which is the lock color. So what it's going to do is add to this particular list here. Let's go ahead and add the code here so this makes a bit more sense. I'm going to go so under this define block, I'm going to actually write out what has to be defined here. So let's go back to our variables. I'm going to replace an existing item on this list here. So let's go ahead and go replace item. Replace item. Now, which item? The index item. So let's go ahead and grab this bubble called index from here. So if our number was 7, for example, we'll replace number 7 on this maps lock list. Let's go change this to maps locked. And we're replacing it with the color, which is the color code for that code. All right, so we're ready to test here. And as I showed you earlier, we have set up our locked room in room 7, which is 0x2, which is 2 up from our current position, which is 0x0. So I'm going to go up to the next room, and when I finish killing the monsters in that particular room, the arrow pointing up will appear, but it will have changed to a padlock colored in color 2, which is green. So let's just test that out and make sure it's working properly. So I move upward. I appear in a room. I've got my monsters to kill here. Let me defeat them. There we go. Beautiful. And then once they're dead, my new keys appear, my new room choices come, and I can go back down again, but the upper door is locked. And so even if I hit my action key here, I cannot go to the upper door until I find a green key. Unfortunately, there is no green key on the map yet, so let's go ahead and attend to that. We're going to go over to our sprite for keys, and that's totally blank right now, and we can start coding our keys now. All right, so let's start with a green flag. So we're going to start with some list maintenance. We have a list here called keys owned. Go ahead and create that one if you haven't already created it. It's empty right now. And the first thing we're going to want to do when we start playing the game is delete that list. So let's go delete all of keys owned. That will just reinitialize that list with all the new information. That's our inventory, right? Do we own any keys or not? It'll look at that list there and see whether we have them or not. Now, we want our keys to be hidden at the beginning, so let's go to our looks menu and grab a hide. Now, we're going to create our keys here. So we're initializing our game here. We're going to set up which rooms keys are going to be in and which keys are in each particular room. We're going to do that with a custom function here. Let's go ahead and create that custom function. We'll go to our my blocks commands here, make a block. And we're going to call this one create key. And we're going to start adding parameters here. So let's add another pipe here just to make it clear that we've got our first parameter coming up. I'm going to call that one color. And then we'll add an input that's called color. Now we'll go add another label. We'll call the next one a map X. And then we'll add another input called mapX. And then we'll add a third input here, another label here called map Y. And we'll add an input here called map Y. Go OK, and now our new custom block will have been created here. Here's our define area here where we can tell it what to do. But let me drag this in here just to show you how this is going to work. So what's going to happen here is every time you want to put a key down, you'll create it here under the green flag index. And what we're going to say is the color of the key. So in this case, so I'm going to put the key down right in the starting area here, which is map 00, right? Where is map 00 under all backgrounds? Let's hear it's room number 1. So I want the key to appear right away when we start the game here. So I'm going to put it into room number 1. So we're going to go create map key of color 2, the same as the other key we created, and we're going to create it at map 00. There we go. So that will be created. Sorry, it's not number 1. So we're actually doing it based on those coordinates here. So if I wanted it up 1, I could say 0x1 like that, for example. And so this will change it. This will move the key over to the next room over. Let's leave it at 0 here just because we want to test it that way. All right. So we need to actually create the blocks here that will actually add this to the list and make everything work properly. So let's go to our define keys here, and we're just going to map these variables out here to real variables in the game. So let's go set key color to color. We'll go set map X to our map X, key map X, sorry. So this is the location of the key, right? Now this again is a local variable, which means that each key will have its own particular map X, right? And we'll go set key map Y to map Y. And once we set all that information, then we create a clone of ourselves, and that's going to create a key that has all of these attributes. It'll know its room number and it'll know its color, basically. So let's go create a clone of myself. But it's going to stay hidden until, I'm going to do that in a second. We're going to hide it. So it'll stay hidden until we actually kill all the enemies in the room. So let's go add a block here that says when I receive, we'll go to our events, when I receive map change. So when we enter the map, we'll tell the key to go to the middle of the room, and that's where the game controller is waiting for us. So let's just say go to game controller, and then we're hide there, waiting for the enemies to be killed for yourself to appear. Okay, so we've created a clone that's hiding and ready to go here. Let's tell it what to do when it starts the clone. Let's go to our events, or sorry, control blocks here. We'll go when I started the clone. Well, we of course want it to be visible, so let's go show. Then we'll tell it to go behind. We don't want it to appear in front of our samurai character. So let's say go to back layer, go to front layer, and I'll change it to back. We're going to set its color to match the color of the of that variable key color. So let's go set color to, or sorry, set color effect to, and it's that same equation, key color times 22. Let's go to our variables and grab key color. There we go. So that will set our key to the proper color. Let's grab a forever here. And we're just going to start checking here to see if I own that particular key. So if, and we're going to look at that list called keys owned. It's blank right now, but it will contain something in a second. So let's go back down to our list variables. We're going to go contains. We're going to, here it is. We're going to grab this one here. This is all backgrounds contains thing. We'll change it to keys owned contains key color. So if that key exists in our inventory, let's go key color, because this is kind of an ID for the key too, right? Because each one, there's only one of each color. Now we're just going to fade the key in. So if we own the key, it's going to fade in at this point. Let's go do a repeat block, repeat 40 times. And we're going to change our ghost effect here to make it appear. So our key is visible, but it's only going to appear when it gets unghosted here. Or, hold it. It's going to become ghosted here. Am I getting confused here? So if we own the key, which means we put it in our inventory, then it's going to disappear off the screen here. Then it's going to stay ghosted out. Yes, that's what's happening here. So let's go change our ghost effect. So we're going to go change color effect, change it to ghost, change it by 2.5. So that will take us 40 times 2.5 is 100. So that'll set the ghost effect to 100, which will make our key invisible on the screen, and it'll add to our inventory, but we won't need to see it in our inventory because it just invisibly appears on this list. Okay, after we're done that, we can actually delete that clone off of the screen. We don't need it anymore. Once we have it in our inventory, we can't put it back there. So let's go delete this clone. There we go. Now, we also need a second, actually an if-else down here below. So let's go if-else down below here. And here's where we determine whether we can see the key or not. So here we got rid of it in case we owned it, but it's going to ignore this, of course, if we don't own it. And it's going to check and see if we actually own the key. So and if we're in the proper room for that key. So what we're really doing here is looking at which room that we're in, which is our map X and our map Y, and we're checking to see if our map X is equal to our key map X, which is whether a key exists in that particular room. So if all these things match up properly, then there is a key in the room, and that's when we'll make it appear. So it's a bit complex here again. We're going to go, we start off with an AND statement. Let's build this up bit by bit here. We'll go to our operators. We'll grab an AND statement and drop it in the hole here. So on the right-hand side here, let's do the right-hand side because it's a little bit easier. We want to know if there's no more enemies left in the room before our keys appear. So let's go enemy count is less than 1. We'll go to our variables. We'll say enemy count right up here is less than 1. Now for the left bubble, let's build this on the outside and we'll drop it in here. So we need an AND. Let's go ahead and grab an AND block. So we're checking to see if 2 more things are true here. And we need to put equal signs in both of the ends of that. So let's go ahead and grab an equal sign here and an equal sign here. So we're just comparing map X to key map X. So we're going to see if our current room matches up with the room where a key appears. So let's go to our variables. We'll go map X is equal to key map X, and map Y is equal to key map Y. So really we're saying our current room, if our current room is a room that has a key in it, and if our enemies are less than 1, then we're going to appear. So we need to do a show here. Let's go to our looks commands and say show. Otherwise, we're going to hide. So we'll put a hide underneath here. Good. All right. And so now we need to be able to pick up the key, which means that we have to be touching it and pressing the E key to grab it. So let's go ahead and grab an if statement here. We'll say if touching player and, so we need an and here. We need to check again if 2 things are true here. So we're going to say touching player, which is under our sensing commands, touching mouse pointer, and I'll change that to touching player. And we press the E key. So if I'm touching and I press the E key, which is our action key, key E pressed, then we can add this to our inventory. So let's grab a sound here. There's a sound called collect, which is a little coin sound here. Let's go start sound collect. I'll show you what it sounds like. So it's a little coin clinking sound. Let's go ahead and add that there. And then we will add the key to our list here. So we need to put it into our list here. Once it disappears from our inventory, from the screen, we need to appear in our inventory. So we'll go add to our list, variables, add, and what are we going to add to our list? The key color, which is the name of that particular key, right? So let's go to our variables. We'll go key color to keys owned. There we go. And so as soon as we grab a key, it should appear in that list there. Okay, so I've messed up my list of backgrounds here. Let's go back to our game controller, and I think I'm actually done coding here and ready to test this. I just want to make sure everything's set up properly. Let's go back to our game controller here, and we're going to regenerate our lists here because I see some items here on our all backgrounds list that should not be there. And those, if I remember correctly, here it is. So we've got this block, this headless block of code here. This is what regenerates our list. It'll basically look at all the rooms that we created and add them all to this backgrounds list here. So once I click on this, it'll regenerate our list. And there we go. And we've got all our different rooms set up here. We created those all under these blocks here. And you can go back and look at lesson 3 to figure out how we did all this stuff here. But we've regenerated our list properly here. And now all we have to do is, so let's have a look at our lists and see what we've done here. We've regenerated our So here's our maps locked list, which has our key in room 7, which is 0x2. Our locked door in 0x2. We have no key right now. All right, so we are ready to go now. Let's go ahead and test our game. You can see when I click the green flag, my key appears in the first room here where I expected it to be. It's a green key. And let's go ahead and explore the map a little bit without grabbing the key, just to show you the difference. So let's go up to the top. Let me max my screen here so you can see this a little better. All right, so I'm gonna go to the top, press the action key. We're in a new room here. I have some monsters to fight. Let's just dispatch them quickly. There we go. And now you can see that I've got a green lock here, so I cannot go to the next room. Let's go back down again. We'll grab the green key. I'll hit the E, triggering the collect sound. The key disappears, and it's now in my inventory. So we can go back up to the next room, refight the monsters again. And you can see that when they're all dead, my doors appear, and this locked door is now open, and I can go to the next room. Beautiful. All right, let's stop the game here, and let's try that one more time. So let's create a new key inside the inside this upper room here, which is 0x1, and we will drop it in. Put the locked door into the right hand room here, which is 1x0. So I'm just going to demo for you guys how this is all working, and we'll just go through a typical example of how we do this. So let's go back to our arrow keys here. We're going to add a locked door in the right hand room, so we're going to add lock 3, let's call it. Oh no, we want to know the room here, sorry. So let's go look at our all backgrounds list. So we're looking for room 1x0, which is a room to the right here. So let's find 1x0 here. It's room number 2. So let's tell it to change room number 2 to key number 3. It's locked by key number 3. So when I click on this, it will modify that list. Let's go ahead and look at maps locked here. And you can see that number 2 now is locked up with key number 3. Let's hide that. And we'll hide our master list as well. And now where are we going to put the key? Let's put the key in the room right above us here. So let's go to our keys. And we're going to create a new key here. So let's duplicate this. And we'll create a new key, number 3. And we're going to put it in the room right above us, which is 0x1. There we go. So now let's play the game again, and let's see how this works. Okay guys, we ran into a little unexpected bug there and had to go back and fix something. So before we can go ahead and test our game, we have to go back and change our code for the skeletons. The reason being the keys are not supposed to appear until all the skeletons are gone, but there's actually a split second at the very beginning of the level where there are no skeletons before they spawn, and that's making the key behave in unexpected ways. So we have to go back and edit our skeleton first, and then we can go ahead and test our code. So let's go right to that. So I'm inside the skeleton object here, looking inside this when map changed object here. So I'm going to take this set enemy count to 0, and we need that to be under the green flag now so that it initializes right away once at the beginning, and that will cover that. Now in here, we've got to change enemy count by 1. That's happening basically the number of times that we have a skeleton count in here. I'm going to remove that from here. Let's go grab this change enemy count. I'm going to pop it right back in there again. And we're going to move this to the top here. Now it's not running around the loop, so we don't know how many times to do it. We're actually going to enter a number here, which is skeleton count. So we're going to tell it to change enemy count by skeleton count here. So everything's doing the same thing, it's just in slightly different places. and that makes a big difference. It didn't make a difference when we were testing 2 weeks ago when we created our skeletons, but it makes a big difference now with our arrows, so that's why we're doing that. Okay, so now we can go back and test it. So I'm going to create a map here where there is a key in the room directly above us, and where there is a locked door to the right of us here. So let's go through the process of how we would go about doing that, and we'll just test our game out that way. So for starters, let's go back to our original thing. I can hide this map's locked now. So let's go back to our arrow key. We'll set up our locked door first. So we're going to do that. We need to pull out one of these custom blocks called add lock. We want to know the index number of the room we want to lock up. So let's go look at our master list of backgrounds, all backgrounds. We want the room 1 to the right of us. So with an X of 1, right now we're at an X of 0. So the room to the 1, or actually 2 to the right of us is 2x0 with 0y, right? So 2x0 is room number 3. So we're going to make the index 3 here. So we're locking up that room, and we're going to color it with a number 6, which is a dark blue color. I'm just going to click on that once. Doesn't look like anything happened, but if you look at maps locked here, you'll see that that's changed to a 6, and so that will work exactly the way we wanted it to. All right, now let's go over to our keys. We're going to set up our key using one of these create key blocks, right? So the key color we want to create is a number 6, and we want it to appear in above us. So we don't want to change our X. We'll leave our X at 0, and we'll change our Y to 1. There we go, plunk that in there. Now, cross our fingers, this should be working. Okay, so we'll go to the right-hand room first and confirm that the door is locked. Got to dispatch the one monster in here first. There we go, he's dead. And you can see the door to the right here to 2x0 is locked. Let's go back this way. And so our key should be in the room up above us here. Let's go up to here. We'll dispatch the monsters in here. And hopefully, yes, our blue key has appeared here. So let's go pick it up with an E key. You got to be careful because it's checking to see whether you're overlapping these. So you could end up in the wrong room. If I were standing here, for example, and clicking on the E key, it'll, as well as picking up the key, it'll also move me up to the upper room here. So I'm going to make sure I'm touching the key and not touching any of the arrows. I'll click the E button. The key disappears, shows up on my inventory. Now I can go down, over to the right. I have to defeat those monsters again. And if all worked properly, there should be a pink arrow on the right here instead of a lock. There we are, beautiful. Now we can go to our next room. All right, looking good. So that's it for part 4, guys. Next week we'll be back with part 5, and I believe we're going to get another enemy going, just so that we can have a different enemy type. We still haven't quite figured out the details of that yet. And then we'll add a boss in our last week as well. So let us know what you think. If you have any thoughts you want to share with me about this project or anything else, you can email me. Email me at info@chromeworks.ca. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Thanks for joining me.